r/askreddit. What was your I need to grow up moment that actually made you grow up? When I was 22-23 I would always insult my brother as a joke. I never complimented him or anything. One day he kind of exploded on me and before I could say something I realized he was right. All I did was try to bring him down for no reason. I stopped, which ironically enough annoyed him for a while because I would throw in compliments and stopped insulting him. I met a girl freshman year of college and we were just like that, constantly dissing each other and pretending we found it funny. One time we were drunk and she told me, "I don't think you've ever said one nice thing to me." Up until that point, I'd never thought of it that way. I stated dialing back on the insults and she did the same. Flash forward to a few years later, and we're best friends who actively try to build each other up instead of breaking each other down for laughs. Be nice to your friends. Bros ripping on each other is an ancient and honorable tradition, but it has got to be a two-way street. If one of your bros isn't ripping back, you need to adjust to that dynamic and treat them accordingly or else they'll adjust you out of their life. Everybody that uses that sort of insult humor got cut out of my life. Props for recognizing its unhealthy behavior. That shit utterly ruined my self-esteem. Edit. Some folks making good points about the intricacies of insult humor. It's a complex subject. There's a time and a place for it. I didn't mean to suggest otherwise. I've engaged in it myself, delicately. Then there's the folks that say things like "shut up, cunt, kill yourself" and think that's a joke. If you've made it to that point, please examine yourself. I got pulled over doing 90 miles per hour in a 55. I was 17, and in my status when you are legally an adult. Was still high school and on my way back from my military drill that weekend. The officer had me stop the engine, get out, and then proceeds to handcuff me on the side of the road, in my uniform, and has me sit on the grass. Then we proceeded to have a nice long talk about making choices and the consequences of my actions if I had crashed or lost control and what would happen if he booked me for this: reckless endangerment, operating a motor vehicle 35 miles per hour in excess of the speed limit, reckless driving. I was going to be one fucked teenager. He then took off the handcuffs, handed me my keys, and told me that he had never seen my name come up anywhere for anything ever again, before letting me go. I was shaking so bad I could barely drive off the highway. Suffice to say, I've never had another traffic violation. Major props to that good cop who taught you a major lesson and let you go rather than book you for all those things. Great example of effective instruction correction. I had a scared straight moment as well. 23-year-old me thought it would be a great idea to just stop paying bills, including my car insurance. I was massively depressed and this was a symptom. Turns out, the state I lived in will hound you for a while via mail, then they send you one final pink notice before suspending your license. Did I pay any attention to these? Nay, I did not. Was I still driving my shitty minivan to and from work? You bet I was. If you are caught driving with a suspended license, they like to give you a new set of bracelets, if you know what I mean. The thought of the shame I would feel for getting arrested. Dad was friends with lots of local cops, nagged at me, but I was hoping I could rectify the situation before I got caught. One day, I decided to go home for lunch, literally doubling down on my chances of getting caught. I was dumb, and I impatiently passed someone on the right, and all because I was speeding, of course. Bam. Flashing lights behind me. My heart sank immediately into my stomach. My mouth went dry and my hands started to sweat. I remember panicking that I had to explain to the officer that my window wouldn't roll down and questioning if I should open my door before or after he came up to my car. I didn't want him to think I was getting out. Not sure why brain decided to focus on that detail rather than the fact that I had no license or proof of insurance to give him. I must have turned pale as a ghost because the officer asked if I was going to pass out. I said maybe and I just started spilling my guts about my shitty job, my shitty life, my shitty ex, and my shitty self. He didn't say much except, "Okay, pepper in the paprikash. Well, you are in a very serious situation," and he walked back to his cruiser with his hand on the handcuffs. I was doomed. When he came back he had a slip of paper with his phone on it. He said he understood that sometimes we feel hopeless and it can make you do stupid things, Like not pay your bills. I had told him where I was working and so he knew I had a job. He told me he was going to let me go, but he wanted me to save $100 and donate it somewhere and send him proof for my fine. He stressed that once I left, I didn't legally have to comply, but he said he hoped that I would. Then he left me with this: when you donate that money, you'll be doing a few things that need to happen in your life. First, giving will make you feel good. It seems like you could use a little good. I was crying my eyes out. Couldn't believe how nice he was. Second, when you text me your proof of donation, you'll show that you can meet an obligation. And third, if you can donate $100, then that proves you can also save your money to pay the fines to get your license back and get insurance, even if it's crap. He made me leave my car, my sister picked me up, and then he left. Officer Greg, if you're out there, that experience taught me so much and was a definite turning point in my life. I donated to an animal shelter, sent him a pic of the check, and started to slowly get my shit together. TLDR, I was stupid. Cop was nice. Fuck depression. Make sure you donate. Edit. Words. And also thanks for the blah 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 lol. When my mom was dying, I had to square with a whole lot of suck it up and deal moments with myself so that shit could get done. She'd been sick for a long while, but had always been private about it until the last few months, when she was rapidly getting worse, especially when my grandmother also got horribly ill at the same time. I got used to the sight smell of bile real fast, and with the fact that I needed to catch my mom's puke in a bowl because she couldn't walk to the toilet. I got used to spending nights and weekends in hospital rooms so that mom would have someone with her while dad was checking in on grandma. I got used to calmly talking about end of life arrangements, because that stuff had to be taken care of. I even got used to not being able to talk about it with anyone, because who was I going to spill to? Everyone else in the family was dealing with a much worse scenario than I was. It sucked horribly and it was the worst year of my life, but it was definitely a growing experience in terms of just learning how to get shit done, even in the most horrific circumstances. I am glad that you were able to do all of those things, but have you had someone to talk to since? I had a year where both sides of my grandparents lost one of them. I was the glue. Not having someone to talk to took its toll until I was able to realize I needed someone too. 4 years later. If you haven't yet, please find someone to help you lift that from your shoulder. PM me if you want. Similar situation here. Having to plan maturely and think clearly while dealing with death is really a mature punch to the face. The last and one of the longest lasting lessons our parents teach us, I guess. I started teaching right out of college at age 22. I got a job in a Title I school teaching 5th grade science and social studies. Most students were held back at least once, and I had several students who were 12 and 13 years old. On the first day of school, I remember feeling so strange that I could shut my classroom door and be trusted to be responsible for the science and civic education of 93 sections of 30 kids, 5th graders. At age 22. My first few years of teaching taught me a lot about how the world worked. I also grew a thick skin, learned to stand up for myself, and developed a desire to always improve myself. Goddamn, that weird hollow feeling when the person doing your induction orientation leaves the classroom for the last time and it's just a thin slice of wood between you and your first class. Same did teaching for me. I began teaching at the age 21. I completely changed. Walking into the rehab center I had left 6 months prior. December 2006. I had been a drug addict for 15 years and even the people who desperately loved me were about to cut me off. I knew in my heart that this was my last chance to get my life in order, otherwise it would be the end. Well, tell us how you're doing now. Good, I hope. Realizing that I want to spend my life with someone, but don't have the means to move in with them, get married, start a life, etc. I started driving. I haven't driven due to fear and mostly got rides everywhere, and got a real job. I'm saving up to get a home with my partner so we can have a happy life together. Edit. Writing most of my replies at work. Just finishing my lunch break. I'm proud of myself for pushing myself to get here to this point. And I want you all to know that you can do it, too. I believe in you. How did you get over your fear of driving? I was 15. I had a stepfather who hated kids, and my mom had 4, me being the youngest. The eldest 2 bailed as soon as they had the chance, because our family was terribly dysfunctional. Stepdad would get drunk and abuse my mom. We tried many times to stop him or get the cops involved, but she always backed him up, so fuck it, her dog, her fleas. There came a day when stepdad decided that he didn't want to abuse mom. He's come upstairs after me. Being a malnourished 15-year-old facing a drunken ex-boxer with a history of violence was enough to make a boy freeze up. I couldn't freeze up, though, or my life would basically be over. I couldn't let the next 5 minutes go his way. So by the time he got to the top of the steps, I was waiting for him with a baseball bat. Not as much of an equalizer as Sam Colt would recommend, but it did the trick. I beat the monster. I grew up. My mom and stepdad moved out almost immediately, her choosing him over us. She said when we graduated high school, she'd sell the house to be ready, but my next oldest brother, it was just him and me at that point, was into drinking and threw me out. Good times. Edit. Thank you for my first gold, kind Redditor. I have been answering some questions below. Perhaps I should write that book, I hear that all the time. Well fug. When I realized that I needed to start socializing with people, otherwise I couldn't get anywhere in life. I'm mostly an introvert and I hate to go outside because the grind never stops. At some point though I realized that if I never socialized I wouldn't make any friends and would never feel good about myself whatsoever. Ever since that moment, I started going out with people, chatting with people online. I started expressing myself a little better and might have a girlfriend soon. Honestly a good thing. IDK if this all fits as a grow up moment, but I hope it does. After I dropped out of college, I worked at a Home Depot as a cashier for a while. Then I got fired for never showing up on time. After not being able to cut it as a cashier in retail, I thought, it's probably time to get my act together. Huh. I did. Currently write code that organizes financial data. Hitting rock bottom from booze, blow and pills. Coming up on 4 years clean and sober. Glad to be on the green side of the dirt. Living with roommates. As a teenager and in my early 20s I figured being lazy with dishes wasn't that big a deal. It's just a little smelly. It's nothing some elbow grease and barkeeper's friend can't make good as new, right? Washing dishes is a pain. It's annoying. My feet hurt. My belly gets all wet. It's no big deal if I let them sit. Then I lived with roommates who didn't do their dishes for days at a time. Left them to sit with nasty starchy food on them to rot and stink. Put them in the drying side for weeks at a time and never put them away. I was forced to wash my dishes by hand because there was only room around the sink for me to hold up a single plate over their mountain of dishes and wash it slowly so as not to get soap on the drying side, which probably would have helped. The things on that side frequently weren't even fucking clean. The rare moments when the sink was clear were like a rainbow for me. I would stare at it sometimes just overjoyed that I could use the sink. I could cook in the kitchen and let my pans cool down instead of burn my hands cleaning them immediately after cooking, leading to my food getting cold. But inevitably within 2 or 3 days it'd be full again. And the cycle continues. We moved out because of this. We couldn't stand being in the kitchen because it was a complete sty for 128 of the 132 days we lived there. We were supposed to save money there, but we just spent the same amount as usual by eating out for every damn meal because we were too grossed out to use the kitchen or even just be in the house sometimes. It really made me realize how fucking nasty I had been before this. How unfucking real it was to assume people would be fine with nasty crap in my fucking sink and a gross ass kitchen. I no longer leave dishes in the sink for more than 24 hours. If it went at 9 PM last night it comes out before 8 PM tonight. I don't even use a dishwasher anymore. I hand wash everything pretty much immediately because it was so traumatizing to see how dirty the shit on the drying side was. I don't trust machines anymore. I made a lot of excuses for myself as a teenager. I made my mom's life that much worse by shirking my one fucking chore because it's gross and my feet hurt. It's not that hard, it's not that fucking hard, I'm an adult, it sucks but it's not that fucking hard. And then I get to have a clean kitchen, which is a genuinely healing experience. A key moment in my development happened in a summer job I had when I was 18. One of my duties at this small industrial facility was to open up the garage style overhead doors at the start of the day and close them at the end. One day I went to close them and discovered one had been pulled so far up that the roller had come out of its track, and I couldn't get it to go back down. I got Frank, the low man on the totem pole at this place, besides me in the other summer hand. He looked up at it and said, "Did you do this?" I hemmed and hawed and explained that it wasn't my fault, that there should have been a stop or a guide or something to keep that from happening. Again he asked, "Did you do this again?" I evaded. Finally he said, "Stop making excuses, admit you fucked up, and let's fix it." I almost uttered some more bullshit but instead said, "Yeah, I did fuck that up. Let's fix it," and we did. That lesson is still fresh after a third of a century. In life, you won't be always right. You'll lie awake at times at night and think about the how, the way you fucked it up, and that's okay. You'll get it wrong. You'll make mistakes. You'll turn a bend and hit the brakes and see the proof, the truth, the sign you fucked it up, and that's just fine. You'll be at fault. You'll be to blame. You'll trip, you'll slip and feel the shame of each mistake arrive anew. But folks fuck up. That's what we do. Man, I agree with this, but I still like when someone gives me a reason. When I was in college and worked at a lumber yard, I fucked up a few times. I'd tell my boss, "Hey, I messed up," and I would fix it with the help of others. Afterwards, I'd try to explain why I fucked up, but apparently everything is an excuse. I feel like everyone has to eat it and just stfoo, and never discuss what led to the fuck up and how to address it or fix it. Now I work in a management position. When someone fucks up, I ask how it happened. I might get upset, I might now, but I still need to know why it happened. Paying rent for the first time. I went to a party where I knew my ex was going to be with his girlfriend. We dated for about 4 years and had been broken up for 2 years at that point. He started dating his girlfriend within a few months of us breaking up, and I guess I hadn't gotten over how much that hurt me. So I brought a date to the party, told everybody he was my boyfriend, and got absolutely trashed. I woke up the next day and hated myself. I realized I needed to let it go, so I did. That was a huge growing up moment for me. Realizing that going to IT school to become a programmer when I wasn't even interested in that line of work was why I had depression, was alone, and always angry. I now am going for art and design, have incredibly calmed down, and found myself the love of my life. My husband has depression and lost his job a few months back, so he's not in a good place right now. We're late 20s and have always muddled through together, but this is the lowest he's ever been. Stepping up to keep us going through this has definitely made me grow up. The positive side is that we're coping well and he's getting help. I'm quite proud of us. Woke up on the median in the busiest part of town. Passing in and out on acid. No shoes, no shirt, and my car keys 10 miles away from home. Called my parents at 5:30 am and knew what had to be done. When I had been doing ecstasy 2-3 times a week for over a year, memory was ridiculous. Could barely string a sentence properly without thoroughly thinking it through. Felt mad anxious about everyone and everything, probability to lack of serotonin. Finding it difficult to spell words that I previously could. I think the correct term is fried. I've now been a month ecstasy sober, which may seem small to you. However, this is the longest it's been since I first started doing them, and I feel better already. I'm not saying I will never touch ecstasy again, but that part of my life is definitely past me. If I do it again, I will certainly not let myself fall down that deep dark hole again, but rather for a bit of fun every now and again, as it can be a beautiful drug in moderation. And I don't care what anybody says, it is definitely mentally addictive. My wife dying and leaving me with our 3 kids. I'd always been very immature up until then. I had a child. It wasn't just me and my adult, fully capable wife who could take up the slack if I screwed up. I now had this helpless little person relying on me. Until she was born, I hadn't held a job for over a year. I then had that job for 8 years, and when I did switch jobs there was a significant pay increase, and now I've been there 4 years. Congratulations on doing so well for your family. When I was born, my dad decided to continue wasting his time and left my mum alone to raise me. I don't think I'll ever forgive him. When I was 23, I got my supervisor pregnant. I broke up with her right before she told me. We decided the best course of action was to give the baby up for adoption. The mother had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder, she was practically a textbook case, and came from a toxic family, so I spent 9 agonizing months putting up with emotional abuse and manipulation to make sure she went through with it and save that little boy from a life of hell. We gave him to a nice gay couple. The mother hates me and blames me. I still feel like what I did was the most fatherly thing I could do at the time. If he wants to look me up when he's older, I'll be waiting. Arrested for BDFI, being a drunken fucking idiot. Realized that almost every problem in my life was related to the fact that I was acting like a drunken frat boy at 27 years old. I never quit drinking completely, but I stopped making it the focal point of my life. My entire life turned around immediately. When every story you tell starts with, we were fucking wasted. You know your life is totally focused around alcohol. In my late 20s my mom needed open heart surgery, so I moved home for over a year to look after her. Up until that point I honestly can't think of a single responsible thing I had really done. That's a big move to sacrifice what you currently have and go all the way back home to look after her. I'm sure she appreciates it more than you think. If you don't mind me asking, why did she need the surgery?